Hello and welcome to the 14th video in this series, making simple Flappy Robin for the iPhone and iPad using Cocos2d. So in this video then we're going to clean things up a little bit. If I just run the application very quickly just to show where we were last time. So I've got the game running here, and if I just let the app run and the robin dies, then you'll see that the robin resets instantly to the middle of the screen. If I get the robin then hitting a tube, just wait a little minute and hit the first tube. Then the robin resets itself to the middle as soon as it's crashed. And that isn't really ideal because it's not a very clean way of doing things. It's nice always to have a little bit of a pause in there. So that's what we're going to add in this video. So we'll be working in the intro scene.m file only in this video. And we're just going to do this by adding in a couple of functions. And I'm going to add this actually below the update function in the code here. So we'll need a couple of functions. I'm going to call one of them game over. So just have a void and game over. And we're going to have another function, and we're going to call this void and re-enable. And we'll call it after game over. A bit long-winded, but at least it gives us a good description of what happens. So what we're going to do is we're going to call game over, and then what's going to happen with game over is that game over is going to then after a couple of seconds then call re-enable after game over, and that's where we'll reset the position of the robin and also take the tubes off the screen. So things look a little bit cleaner than they did before. So writing then our game over, the first thing we'll say is that the game started is now equal to no, obviously, because we'll clean up some of the code as well up in this section here, so we'll be taking that out. So we can now call a game over and say that the game started is no. One thing we want to do then is we want to be able now to force this 2-second gap. So what we'll do is we'll say that user interaction is now disabled, so it's set to no, and that stops reaction to any touches or anything. So if the robin crashes and the user happens to make a tap, like I think it happened to me in the last video, it almost looks like the game restarts instantly. You don't actually see that one game has finished and another one has started, because the tap comes just after a crash. So we want to disable the detection of touches by setting user interaction enabled to no, so that the user can't actually do anything on the screen then for the time that we specify. Then what we can also do is just copy this robin reset from here, just to call the reset on the robin, although it doesn't do very much. And then we can also drop this stop game now from above inside here. So we're essentially doing all of the stuff that we did inside here, and we'll deal with this this section here in a moment. Now what we need to do is we need to call this after a defined time, and a couple of ways of doing this. One is to schedule a function call after a certain amount of time, but the way I'd like to do it actually is I'm going to do it with a couple of actions. So I'm going to say cc action delay, and then just the delay action, delays action, because I've switched to a UK keyboard from a German keyboard, so Z's and Y's might be mixed up, so delay action, and then we want cc action delay, and then it's action with duration, and let's we'll put it at 2 seconds, shall we? That should be okay. Put an F there so it knows what it is. Okay, so we have our delay action, and then we want our cc action call function like so, which you've also seen already on some of the other classes, and action call I'll just call it re-en. Let's call it re-enable, action call re-enable, and then we want cc action with some square brackets with IntelliSense breaks it up, action call func, and then we want action with target, and the target is self. And I'm actually going to I'm working, if things are a bit slower today, it's because I'm actually away, but I wanted to get a couple of videos done, so I'm working purely from my laptop screen. Usually I work with 3 screens, so I have stuff on either side, notes and things like that. So if things are a little bit slower or whatever today, that's the reason. So I'm working with quite a bit of a smaller bit of space available. So you know why things aren't looking maybe quite as as good as they should. But we want then inside here our @selector. Where is it? And then it's re-enable after game over. And that should be all we need to do there. And now, of course, all we need to do then is we need to run this as an action sequence. So we can say self, and then run action. And then we want some square brackets, cc action sequence. And then the sequence we need to do is just action with array, and then we have an ns array, so we need an @ inside here, and then our delay action, and then our action called re-enable, and another square bracket. And that's all we need then for there. I'll just actually move this down to a new line as well, so that's more visible, because like I said, I'm a bit more squashed up today. And I'll put this selector down like this. The code's available for download anyway. So now we're basically going to call this game over, where we then say that after a delay we're going to call this re-enable after game over, and then in there we'll reset the tubes and things. But before we do that, actually no, not before we do that, let's go to this re-enable after game over so we can actually get this done correctly. So the first thing we want to do is obviously re-enable, set user interaction enabled back to yes, like so. So we actually re-enable everything, and we'll also need to position the Robin. So what we're going to do is take these two lines here, and I'm just going to copy those lines, and then down inside here just paste them into here so that we reposition our Robin. And then the other thing we want to do is we want to call this stop on the tubes. Now I'm just going to check where we actually do this. At the moment we're doing this inside the start game here. We'll leave that in there, it doesn't really matter that we've got it there, but we'll actually drop this in the re-enable after game over here, like so. And in fact technically we then don't actually need it, do we, in the start game. So let's actually comment this out for now, just to double check we don't need it. Inside start game. And that's the stop. Remember, the stop all actions that we have in the stop game just freezes them in position. The stop is the one that actually moves them then completely off the screen to be reused as the game's running. So our re-enable after game over then is repositioning our Robin. Just leave a gap here. It's setting touches back to being received, and it's also moving all the tubes off the screen. And let's actually take this user interaction re-enabled and put that right at the end of this function here. So now we've got that slightly better game logic running in there. What we can do then is actually call this game over in this way. So when we call this game over then, we don't need the Robin position stuff and the Robin reset, we don't need the game started, and we don't need the self stop game. So they can all come out, and they can now be replaced with self and game over. And now that's done, that should allow us to actually have a little bit of a cleaner running of the application. So let's have a go then with the screen. The sound, by the way, for you should be off. Unfortunately for me, it's playing away in my ears, which is a little bit irritating and distracting. But let's just see what happens now when the Robin collides with the tube here. We should get a pause. It's not receiving touches, and now things reset, which looks a lot cleaner than it did before. So I'll just let him fall onto the floor, just demonstrate that a little bit better. So now the Robin stays in position. I'm clicking, and only when the Robin was reset did it actually detect that click. I'll do that a bit cleaner, so a few clicks, nothing, and now after a couple of seconds it's all reset and everything is okay. Good, so that's it then for this video, a little bit of a clean up of how the game looks. What we'll do in the next video is we'll actually add a label in to say game over, and also a label to then say tap the screen to start the game, so we add a little bit more and flesh out a little bit more our interface so it actually looks a bit more like a normal game rather than just something that's sort of half finished. So I hope that video made some sense, and thanks very much for watching, and see you in the next one.